What's up YouTube, Dale here from Zephyr, bringing you another profile for the legendary 5Ds decks. We've done Yusei Synchrons, we've done Akiza's Black Rose, so now it's time to do Crow's Black Wings. So what I'm going to do with this profile is I'm going to show you a combo at the end of the video as well, quite like the Black Rose, quite like the Synchrons as well, so you have everything you need to know. Now with this, what I like about the Black Wings from the legendary 5Ds is it's probably the most flexible of all the decks. What I mean by that is a very small investment can modernize it, a very small investment can make it go to a Time Wizard style format, and then some small adaptations can also make it fit within Genesis. You're getting like the best of everything you need. Now this build isn't like the most expensive version. It has some ways that you can mix it with Bistils as well to give it another fighting edge. But what I quite like about this one, and I'll go through that as I show you the profile, is I'll start off with all the cards you can get from the legendary 5Ds, and then I'll show you the cards that you need to like add or pick up. The ones that are going to be more prominent will be the Blackwing cards that are kind of missing, and then that will kind of give you everything you need to know. So with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content. Starting off with your baseline starters. So you're going to want to be going with free Simoon. Now the best thing about this is the majority of the Blackwing cards themselves are in like one legendary 5Ds deck, because you get free Simoon from one deck. You also get free Vata from one deck. And then you also get free Sundry from one deck as well, which is just absolutely crazy because straight away you've already got what you need to get started. And then the rest of the Blackwing cards I'm going to show you, bar slightly disappointingly, Black Whirlwind is the only one that didn't come as a free in the deck that you want to play free of. But it's a common, you can pick it up very easily. A friend might even hook you up with it. So we're going to be playing two of the Shamal. So for those of you unfamiliar with how all of the Blackwing cards work, I'll give you a bit of a breakdown. Simoon is if you control no monsters and you have this card in the hand, you get to banish one other Blackwing monster from the hand to place a Black Whirlwind directly from the deck face up into the spell and trap zone, and then you can either send this card to the graveyard or immediately after threat resolve, normal summon it without tribute. So the benefit of something like that is it will trigger the Black Whirlwind to give you a search, which is absolutely amazing, but then it also is an additional normal summon because then it means you can still get your another normal summon. So you're going to get like the best of both working off with the Simoon. The Simoon is of course a 2-card combo because you do need another Blackwing to banish. Your better starter on itself will be the Sundry, because when it is normal summoned, you get to add a card that mentions Blackwing Dragon from the deck to the hand, except itself, which will get you into the Vata. And the Vata has a very cool ability that lets you synchro summon by using the materials in the deck as well as itself. So you'll see that in the combo at the end of the video, just going to give you a bit more of an understanding. Shamal can be discarded from the hand or from the field directly as well to the graveyard to place again a Black Feather Whirlwind directly from the deck face up in the spell and trap zone. The other additional effect of this card as well is you get to banish this card to then target one Blackwing monster in your graveyard and add it back to the hand. The benefit of something like that is it does allow you to recycle your Chinook, and Chinook is kind of like your technical hand trap. So you get to send this card from the hand or field to the graveyard to then target a face-up monster your opponent controls. You send a Blackwing Synchro monster or a Blackwing Dragon from the extra deck to the graveyard, and if you do until the end of this turn, that targeted monster loses 700 attack and you negate its effects. It is a quick effect if you control a Dark Synchro monster, which is exactly what you're going to be aiming to do. So you can kind of see the usage of being able to send this directly from the deck to the grave, which means you don't need to play free copies of it, and then being able to use Shamal to recycle it, and again you'll see this as we go through the combo. We're then playing one of Crow's classic Bora the Spear. So if you control a Blackwing monster other than itself, it just lets you extend by special summon it. And then if it attacks a defense history monster, you can flip piercing battle damage. We've then got the one Harmata. So this one is if you control a Blackwing other than itself, you get to special summon it. And you can also, when it is normal or special, you get to target one other Blackwing monster you control and increase this card's level by that monster. Again, it's very important depending when you're trying to adapt levels that you'll see throughout the Synchro kind of era, is adapting levels and manipulating the levels is where you're going to be able to get the most from your cards. We've then got the one Waning Moon. So if a monster with 2,000 or more attack is on the field, you get to special on this card from the hand, so yours or your opponent's. You can only special summon it once per turn this way. If you control a Blackwing Synchro monster, you get a quick effect to banish it from the graveyard to then target a face-up card your opponent controls and destroy it. So this will be an interactive card by having that quick effect, and you should very easily be able to control a Blackwing Synchro monster. Then we've got free Black Whirlwind. So like I said, this one came as 2 in the structure deck, but you can pick up a third one very easily. Like if a friend buys this, nice and easy pickup. And even then, so it also came in Legendary Duelist free, so common should be really easy to pick up. But when a Blackwing is normal summon to your field, you get to add a Blackwing from the deck to the hand, and that's not a hard once per turn or even a soft once per turn. It's just as many normal summons as you can gain. Usually in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh, within reason, you should be able to gain like an additional summon. Through the Blackwings themselves, they can give you the additional summon, like I've said, with the Simoon and everything else in between. Then the 1 Black Feather Whirlwind, you can place at 2 should you wish to, but honestly 1 is more than enough. So once per turn, if you special a Dark Synchro monster from the extra deck, you get to target one of your Blackwing monsters or a Blackwing dragon that is banished or in the grave with less attack than the monster that was special summoned, and special summon it. And then once per turn, if a dark monster you control would be destroyed by battle or card effect, you get to remove a Black Feather counter from the field instead. Now, this is a once per turn effect, so if you're able to return it to the hand and then activate it, that's when you're going to get the best benefit from it. Keep in mind as well that being placed directly from the deck is different from being activated from the hand. So if a card does say you can only activate 1 of this card per turn, you're not activating it when you're placing it. So it's a nice little loophole. It's where you can utilize this twice in a turn, which is really, really useful. Then we've got the 1 Blackwing Twin Shadow. You don't have to play this. It definitely gives me My Hero Academia vibes, which I really do like. So Twin Shadow and everything else in between. But this one lets you shuffle 2 of your Blackwing monsters, a tuner and a non-tuner that are banished or in the grave, back into the deck or extra deck to special summon a Blackwing Synchro or a Blackwing Dragon from the extra deck, whose levels equal the total levels of the 2 monsters you have put back into the deck. I think it's really kind of cool to give you that ability to give you a Synchro summon during your opponent's turn, especially if your opponent's been able to clear off your monsters. You then still get another way of being able to trigger off or set up all of your other cards like the Moon and the Chinook that need you to have a Blackwing or a Dark Synchro on the field. Then the card that wasn't in Crow's deck but was in Yusei's deck that you're going to want to play is Assault Synchron. This can just act as a very nice extender for the deck. It can help you work your way into some of your other Dark Synchro monsters, and when you tribute cards as well, you can utilize the Assault Synchron to banish and bring them back. A card that you would probably need to get free of, but if you're like, I'm just buying 1 Legendary Duelist deck, then you could play 1 Fuelos, 1 Perulia, and 1 Meows, but you're going to want to be going with your Fuelos. Another thing you could really do with this deck, which is really kind of cool, is if you purchased the Chronicles deck, the Fallen and the Virtuous, you could actually kind of minimize this and go for a Bestial version of the deck, because you could play 1 Lubellion, 1 Magnamur, 1 Druid Swarm. You would have to pick up a Bull Drake, but that's a common, very easy to pick up. And then you play the 1 Regained, and you'd play a very small Bestial engine. And the benefit of something like that is it helps you get to stuff like your Bestial Dispatter. And it can also help you be a very nice disruptive hand trap, especially if the environment you're going to is very heavy on Mitsurugis or just light and dark decks in general. Then we've got 3 Drow and Lockbird. So you would need to pick up a 3rd Drow and Lockbird. 3 Ash Blossoms. Again, between the 3 Legendary Duelist decks, you'll be able to get 3 Ash Blossoms very easily. 3 Infinite Impermanence, the exact same kind of play. If you are and lucky enough to have Dominus Impulse, you could put Dominus Impulse in here very easily, but keeping in mind like the budget factor and trying to keep this as very easily built as possible, 3 Imperm is more than enough. 1 Call by the Grave, and then again, taken away from the Yusei deck is the 1 Crossout Designator. The reason I've gone for this is because it just gives you more ways to try and play around Droll, try and play around Fuelos, try and play around Ash, and Imperm itself as well. Then the cards that unfortunately aren't in the structure deck, 3 that I'm like, why? And then 3 that I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. You might want to pick these up relatively cheap and easy. So the 3 that you want to pick up relatively cheap and easy is 3 Small World. So this is just another consistency piece for the deck, because you can be able to use your Assault Synchron as a bit of a bridge, because that is a dark, but then obviously that can work around with some of your other hand traps, levels and everything else. It's a card that still confuses some players. Some players are either so frightened of this card that they ash it straight away and you're like, yeah, cool, now the rest of my cards can play. Or it's one of the ones that just kind of helps you, as long as you understand what you're trying to go to, what your bridges are, what you're starting with, what you're ending with, it just really helps you get to your Simoon and everything else in between. Now the 3 Blackwing cards that we're kind of missing that you kind of need is the 1 Zephyros the Elite, the 1 Zonda the Dusk, and the 1 Kunai the Drizzle. Now, the Zonda, all of these should be really easy to pick up. I think Kunai was probably the most awkward for me to find, like it was hidden in the back of my bulk. But the idea behind all of these is Zephyros the Elite is, when you're taking into account Genesis, it's like 13 points on its own. The one that shocked me with points, and I'll talk about it a little bit later on, is the Borestorm the Wicked. So this was like 20 points on Genesis. I was like, whoa. Anyway, so Zephyros the Elite gives you that ability to bring back the Black Whirlwind and then go again. The Zonda has a really nice kind of play from the extra deck, from the graveyard. So you can't special summon monsters from the extra deck except synchro monsters, which is absolutely fine. You can only use one of the following effects once per turn, and only once that turn. If it's normal or special, you get to target a monster on the field and return it to the hand. But you can also banish this card from the graveyard to special summon a level 5 or higher Blackwing monster from the hand or deck, and you take damage equal to its attack. So it's another one of them cards you can send from the deck to the grave with your Vata, sets that up, and then you have the ability of being able to banish it and then extend your plays further. The kunai is you can special summon this card from the hand by triggering a Blackwing monster, and if summoned this way, you can also treat it as a tuner. Once per turn, you get to target a synchro monster you control, declare a level from 1 to 8, and it becomes that level until the end of this turn. So again, level manipulation, it can really help you start opening up the doors to some of your other synchro plays. So that's it for the entire main deck. Now to move on to the extra deck. I'll do the exact same thing as I just did with the main deck, is I'll show you the cards that are within the Legendary 5D's Crow deck, and then I'll start talking about the cards that you might want to be looking out for, ones you want to upgrade for, and everything else in between. So we start off with 2 Black-Winged Dragon. Yes, of course, we are going to be utilising the chibi artwork. I do love the chibi artworks in these. I think they're really kind of cool. But if you want to be extra flashy and extra shiny, you are able to pick up quarter century secret rares of the Black-Winged Dragon as well. The other card you're going to want to play 2 of is the Blackwing Assault Dragon. If you're on a bit more of a tighter budget, and there are some cards that are a little bit more expensive that I'll show you a little bit later on, but you can actually very easily play 3 Blackwing Assault Dragon. So it must either be synchro summoned or special summoned from the extra deck by banishing 1 tuner synchro and a Blackwing Dragon, which is why you need to go through your Blackwing Dragon very easily, and you basically have the ability to upgrade it and go into the Assault Dragon, which we'll see in the combo at the end. Then on top of that as well, each time your opponent activates a monster effect, you place 1 Black Feather counter on this card when that effect resolves, and if you do, you inflict 700 damage to your opponent. During your opponent's turn, you get a quick effect to tribute this card with 4 or more Black Feather counters on it to destroy all cards on the field. We've then got the 1 Nufong. So if this card is special, you inflict 800 damage to your opponent, and then 1 face-up monster your opponent controls loses 800 attack. You can only use each effect once per turn, and then during your main phase, or you can normal summon 1 Blackwing monster in addition to your normal summoner set. So this is going to be different from the Simoon, because the Simoon is like its own effect normal summoning it. This gives you an additional normal summon, and then you have your original normal summon. So you've got so much you can go through with the Nufong, it's crazy. 1 Blackwing Armor Master, it just doesn't feel like a Crow deck if you're not playing the Blackwing Armor Master. It can't be destroyed by battle, and you take no battle damage from attacks involving this card. At the end of the damage step, if it attacked a monster, you get to place a wedge counter on that monster, and then you get to remove all wedge counters from your opponent's monsters. The attack and defense of all monsters that have wedge counters on them become 0 until the end of the turn. So it's a really nice way of being able to clear out one of your opponent's boss monsters. 1 Blackwing Full Armored Master. So you can kind of see how you got your Blackwing Dragon going to Assault Dragon, and you got your Armor Master going to your full armor. So unaffected by other card effects, each time an opponent's monster activates this effect, you place a wedge counter on it. And then when that effect resolves, once per turn you get to target 1 monster your opponent controls with a wedge counter and take control of it. And then once per turn during your end phase, you get to destroy all monsters on the field that have a wedge counter. It's a very nice, powerful boss monster. It's one way that will kind of put a ticking clock on your opponent's monsters, and that's where it will get more benefits during Genesis format, where it's a little bit slower and not as easy to go, oh, okay, cool, link off and go. Then we've got the 1 Blackwing Borer Storm, the Wicked Wind. Now this one is 20 points in Genesis, and I was like, whoa, that's crazy. It makes sense because of what it can do, and I think that's kind of like the general feel throughout Genesis. But if it is synchro, you get to send a Blackwing monster from the deck to the grave, and if you do that, this card's level becomes the same as the monster sent. When this card destroys a monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, you banish a Blackwing monster from the graveyard or face up on the field, except the destroyed monster, and special summon it. Special summon the destroy monster to your field in defense position. Only use each effect once per turn. So again, it's just taking control of your opponent's monsters. Then the optional kind of cards. Actually, I'll save this one. Okay. So this is in the deck, which is why it's featured here. So when this card is synchro summoned, you get to target up to 2 face-up monsters on the field with defense lower than this card's attack, so 2800 or less. Destroy those targets. You can't conduct the battle phase the turn you activate this effect, and during each of your opponent's turn, the first Blackwing monster you control that would be destroyed by battle is not destroyed. So it kind of makes most of your monsters become a bit of a wall. Now, the cards that are relatively cheap and easy to pick up that you're going to want to add to this: Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss, relatively easy. Draco Berserker of the Tenyi, again, relatively easy, and I highly advise going for this. If you're playing the Genesis format, you won't be able to play these 2 cards I'm about to show you, but if you're not playing the Genesis format and you want to play it modern, you're going to want to go for an SP Little Knight and a Y-Strix. The SP is just to kind of get you out of certain binds that you might find yourself into, and the Y-Strix gives you the ability to special summon another Blackwing directly from the deck, so you might need it for the levels, you might need it for the tuner, everything else like that. It lets you special summon a level 4 Darkwing Beast from the deck, so very easy to do. Then the final 3 cards really kind of comes down to optional opinions, what you have available to you and everything else in between. So this is where your final slot's going to come into play, or your final 2 slots, I believe it is. Yep, so your final 2 slots, you're going to be choosing 2 of the 3 that I'm about to show you. So the ones that are cheaper and easier to pick up, Bestial Dispatter, obviously this will be in this version or the Bestial version. Then I quite like the idea of Arms of the Gen X Return 0. Now you're only ever really going to be able to negate dark effects, but the fact of the matter is this would be a cheaper alternative to a Chaos Angel. So you're going to play one or the other, but the idea behind both of these is that they are negate options, more so the Gen X for the negate, but then you've got a wall option because you're going to be making this with darks, so monsters you control can't be destroyed by battle outright, which is really important, and then be able to be a bit of spot removal by targeting a card in the field and banish it. So it's going to give you a bit more of an aggressive benefit, but considering like Chaos Angel is something like £20, and I believe like the Arms of the Gen X is like £5 to £3, depending on where you're looking, that might adapt and change. But like I said, if you can't afford or you don't want to afford like your Dispatter or your Chaos Angel, go for this and then put in a third, wherever it may be. Put in a third, not Blackwing Dragon, Blackwing Assault Dragon, and then you would also put in a third Blackwing Dragon because that's the best way to make this, but you can of course make it the hard way through the synchros and the tuners. So it kind of gives you a bit more of flexibility, and like I said, the majority of all of this was in the Legendary 5Ds deck. So there's only a few cards. I'll quickly just lay out the cards that weren't in the structure decks, just so you can kind of see what you'd want to, like as a whole picture, what you might want to consider grabbing, picking up, or you know, updating. So this, your 3 Small Worlds. A third Blackwing, really annoying, but if you're going to buy 3 of the Crow decks, because it does come with Fuelos, then you're going to be pretty covered. Zephyros, obviously the 3 full Small Worlds, I'm not going to put all 3 out there for you. And I believe there was one more, there it is. So outside of that, you're pretty much covered. Like, how crazy is this? That if you were to buy, technically if you were to buy like 1 Legendary 5Ds decks and then find the pieces, let's just go for the pieces of this and then like 2 more Fuelos, if you really wanted to. Like, that's all you really need. Like, you're adding like 15 cards for main or extra, and you're getting a complete deck ready to go. Now, it's all ready to go from the Legendary 5Ds deck in general. It's just like, if you want to take it up a level, you don't really need to find that much, which is what I really like about the Legendary 5Ds. So, yeah. Anyway, that's it for the entire profile. Now what I'm going to do is show you a very, very basic combo for the deck. So you have a bit of an idea of how the deck wants to utilize itself, and we're not going to go in anything too crazy, but it's just showing you how you make Blackwing and then work your way, Blackwing Dragon, and then work your way into the Blackwing Dragon Assault. So we'll be back in a second. Here is a very basic Blackwing combo coming from Sudri. Now, this combo can be adapted. You can take it up different levels depending on what else you have in hand and depending on which direction you want to go and what other cards you have access to. This is just going to show you what you can do with mainly the Legendary 5Ds deck. The only card we're going to need to utilize that's not in the decks is, of course, going to be the Zephyros the Elite. So, massive shout out to Shmu Yugioh, who I found this combo on, and I was like, that's really cool. It's very basic, very well done video. So go and check out their channel. You'll see loads more Blackwing stuff as well. So you start off by normal summoning down the Sindri. This one on normal lets you add a card that mentions Blackwing Dragon from the deck to the hand, except itself. Now it's very, very important because this will come up later on. This is not a once per turn. It's just an on normal summon effect. The only card or the effect that is a once per turn is to tribute a monster to special summon a Phantom Glimmer token. That's the only thing that is a hard once per turn. So we're going to normal summon down the Sundry. This is going to grab us the Vata. Vata is going to special summon itself because we control a Blackwing monster. Then we're going to use Vata's effect to send the Chinook itself and the Zephyros to the graveyard. And this will then let us summon out the Black-Winged Dragon. We will now use Sundry's effect to tribute off the Black-Winged Dragon to spawn us the token. Now it's very important, the token is going to be a level 2 tuner. Very, very important as we try to make our plays further forward from this point. Because what we're going to want to do here is we're going to use Zephyros' effect in the graveyard, targeting the Sundry to add it back to the hand. Remember how I mentioned that it's not a hard once per turn on the normal summon? Well, now we're about to find out how we get that additional normal summon. So you're going to synchro the token as a level 2 tuner, and you're going to use the Zephyros the Elite, and it's going to grab us the Nofeng. Nofeng is then going to provide you with an additional normal summon, so you're going to get an additional normal summon of the Sundry, which will allow you to grab another card that mentions Blackwing Dragon from the deck except itself. The card you're going to want to grab is going to be the Twin Shadow. Now the benefit of Twin Shadow in this last little bit of text here is if you control 2 or more Blackwing monsters, you can activate this card directly from the hand. So we're going to be able to activate the Black-Winged Twin Shadow. So this one lets you shuffle 2 Blackwing monsters, a tuner and a non-tuner that are banished or in the graveyard, back into the deck or extra deck. So you're going to want to use your Zephyros the Elite as the non-tuner, and you're going to want to use the Vartar as the tuner to go back into your deck to grab you the Blackwing Borestorm the Wicked Winds, which is pretty amazing because this one, if it's synchro summoned, you get to send a Blackwing monster from the deck to the grave, and the one you're going to want to send is going to be your Shamor. So as I mentioned through the profile, you're going to want to keep an eye on this because the Shamor will get you a hand trap interaction back in a short while. So what you're now going to do here is you're going to use Nofung as a level 6, and you've got your Borestorm as another level 6. You're going to synchro both of these together, and this is going to grab you your Blackwing Full Armored Master because it requires a Blackwing tuner and then one or more non-tuner. At this point here, what you can do is you can trigger the Small effect. If a Blackwing Synchro Monster or a Blackwing Dragon is special to your field while this card's in the grave, you banish it to take a Blackwing Monster from the grave and add it back to the hand, and you will take 700 damage. So that's going to allow you to grab the Chinook back to the hand. And as I mentioned, the Chinook has a very cool ability that during your opponent's turn, it's a quick effect if you control a Dark Synchro Monster to send it from the hand or field to the grave to target a face-up monster your opponent controls. You send a Blackwing Synchro or Blackwing Dragon from the edge deck to the graveyard, and then until the end of the turn, the target monster loses 700 attack, and you negate its effect. So you've got that set in your hand ready to go. We're not done there because we do want to special summon out our Black-Winged Assault mode, or a Blackwing Assault Dragon. And to do this, it must be special summoned or synchro summoned from the edge deck by banishing a tuner synchro monster and a Black-Winged Dragon. So you have the benefit of your Borestorm the Wicked Wind as your tuner, and you've got your Blackwing Dragon to get you into the final piece. Now remember, this is where it gets really, really important. Because it is a special summon, it's not a synchro summon. The levels don't need to add up to the levels that we have here. So that is why you can use a level 6 and a level 8 in order to special summon out your Assault Dragon. Now remember, you've got a guaranteed Chinook in the hand, plus you will end up having 4 more cards in your hand that can be your Drolls, they can be your Ashes, your Imperms, or more Blackwing cards that can help you extend this play. If you do have Simoon, you'll be able to go one step further. You'll be able to make a different combo outcome. But this is just something very, very basic, very, very simple that you can do with the Legendary 5Ds deck that gets you this field presented right here. And you can still have the ability to extend that a little bit further. Let's say you have Assault mode. You can special summon that down, and then you can synchro off and go a little bit further if you need to. Anyway, that is it for the entire profile. Like I said, massive shout out to Shmew Yugioh, who I saw this combo on. All credit where credit is due. I thought it was just a really kind of cool, complete combo that was nice for basic beginners for the Blackwing strategy. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share. Till next time, as absolutely always, stay safe, and of course, happy dueling.